Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Doug Bruhnke. I'm behind Joelle here. Hi, how are you? Dr. Joelle Martin is our first speaker. We're calling in from our headquarters in Scottsdale, Arizona, where there was a flood last night. So we have kind of an interesting setup. Behind us, there's a crowd of folks. We're actually sitting at the desk of a member of Global Chamber in our Global Chamber area, Delta Technologies. And so we want to thank Kevin Siegmiller for allowing us to use his setup there, and we've somehow survived the flood. So this is a global business, right? Global business is unpredictable. Global business requires flexibility and resilience. And I've heard, hard like water, right? So we've got actually an example of water, and we've been flexible. And I started to get reports about the flood last night about 10 p.m. I came in about 3 a.m. and cleared up the area, and we're all set to go. We have 5 amazing women today who are going to be speaking to us about their experience, both for themselves and for their companies. The first speaker is Dr. Joelle Martin. You've got some information about her on the description of the event, and we're going to be recording this and also putting a blog post up. So it's going to be recorded for posterity for everybody, including the backgrounds of everybody. But I do want to say a few words about each one of the speakers as they come up, because they are truly extraordinary. We're going to be doing about 30 minutes of them speaking. We're going to do about 30 minutes after that of Q&A, primarily from me. And then the last 30 minutes will be Q&A from the audience. And so for the audiences around the world, whether you're on your smartphone somewhere, taking a train across India or Pakistan or wherever you happen to be, or if you're in one of the locations, whether it's Silicon Valley here in Arizona, Salt Lake City, or in Mumbai, please feel free to interrupt the host. I'm the host here in Arizona. We've got Meher, who's the host in Salt Lake City. We have Vinod in Mumbai, or maybe Tina, you're there on your own. And then we have Lucie, who's at the Cooley, one of our sponsors, Cooley office in Palo Alto in Silicon Valley, who is the host for the Silicon Valley office. So Dr. Martin, who's our first speaker, is president of Triad West. She's author of How to Be a Positively Powerful Person and Get Me Brand Awareness. So she's very steeped in both business knowledge and also in marketing ability. She's worked with companies in the US, China, Russia, Malaysia. Everybody's worked at Russia. France, United Kingdom, and Norway. So a lot of activity, and she actually has an event coming up in Kuala Lumpur coming up in October that hopefully she'll mention to us.
I will.
Dr. Martin, tell us a little bit more about your global experience, both from a company and personal perspective. And
I'm delighted to be here with you, global participants. Yes, my name is Joelle Martin. I was not named for a man. I have a background, a short background I want to share with you to be a motivational part of my introduction to myself. I was one of the first women to own and operate a full-service advertising agency, and then I had a change of heart, a very risky change of heart. I decided I was empowered to make a global impact. My mission now and forever is to change lives and businesses for the better. The corporation that I have founded to be the umbrella for the work that I do is Triad West. Triad West is regional and global, as you've been so kind to say, Doug. We are experts in consulting, coaching, and training, and we have succeeded for more than 15 years because we provide solutions that strike at the universal demand and needs of our clients wherever they are located. And as you know, my clients are located all around the world. Our expertise is in 3 areas. Area 1, we developed, nurture, guide visionary, transformational leaders and teams, because I believe through transformational leadership and team building, we can develop all companies in a far more progressive and active and successful manner. The second area is the ability to design and deliver effective and engaging diversity and inclusion programs. and best practices. And we've done this as well for some very notable companies. Our clients, as I said, are very well known. They're doing really great work. And before I share with you point 3, that's one of the similarities that's important for me, to align with the companies that we choose to work with and the companies that choose to work with us. They're already doing great work. And one of the values that's very important to me is that they be a commitment, embodying a commitment to serve our communities. And that was the reason why I left my ad agency. Number 3, I have a track record of success in coaching women executives. 10 years ago, I founded the Positively Powerful Woman Awards and programs and have gotten the support of some wonderful program sponsors. And so as Doug mentioned, yes, in October, they will be hosting we will be hosting the 3-day Women's Empowerment Workshop in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And so all of my friends and colleagues here in the United States, there's also one in Phoenix. We've had it in Phoenix for the last 10 years, as well as the awards. The purpose of the awards is to honor and acknowledge women professionals in ways that empower all people to live their dreams, going back to my mission again. So 10 years ago, I did that. I founded that. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I love working with organizations that do good in the world. So what has led to our 15 plus years of success? Here's some things that I will share with you that are working well. Number 1, building connections with people through networking and authentic communications. People keep coming back to work with me and my colleagues and referring me to others. I get a great deal of my business from referrals, and that's one of the things that I'm going to be speaking about in the challenge area. I'd like to get more business from the work that we're doing in social media and writing and being a thought leader. Another thing is, I think for those of us who are committed to being global, we must understand and utilize the power of inclusion. The whole thing about diversity and inclusion in the United States is it seemed to be treated as the flavor of the month. It's far more deeper and profound than that. With globalization and technology, diversity became the way to win in business. And there's a body of research that can be shared if anyone's interested to learn that. But inclusion is an international need of all people. Have you ever walked into a room and not felt included? Compare that to walking into a room and knowing that you are included, and going into a workplace and knowing that your best work is appreciated. That's what we create. We create cultures that make that possible. Diverse organizations and having a cultural context for inclusion. So learn about others' cultures. So what else has been working for us? Social media. Social media, online marketing, that's truly a global thing for us. We keep doing that, and it does very well for us. Let's see, I'm just checking on my time here. What else works for me? I'm a keynote speaker. I love people, if you can't tell this. I do. I love people. And again, my mission is to change businesses and lives for the better. So as a keynote speaker, I'm passionate, interactive, enthusiastic, and informative. And because we're speaking about women in business, I will share with you that one of my often requested topics is how to be a positively powerful, fearless women in business. Remaining challenges for me, yes. Getting more work in, leaving a legacy organization, that means I'm growing my business, and creating a distinctions between ourselves, between Triad West and Positively Powerful, and those who provide similar seeming services. So that's, I don't know, how am I doing, Doug? Have I got more time?
You're amazing.
Thank you. I think I'm complete. I look forward to your questions. Please chime in, whatever challenges that you're having, whatever resources that you're needed. That's what we are here for. And I think I can safely speak for the other speakers as well. Thank you.
Well, Thank you, Dr. Martin. Really appreciate great words of wisdom there. We're now going to switch across the world, almost exactly across the world, to Mumbai. Tina Mani, she's the co-founder and CEO of the company Yfret, and so Y-F-R-E-T, Yfret. They enable online retailers to showcase their products. They have a unique technology that allows companies that have many products online to be able to manage that content across a variety of different websites. It's a really awesome technology. They found us through one of their investors in Switzerland, and I know he actually may be on the line. So thank you very much for being a member, just like Dr. Martin being a member of Global Chamber. We really appreciate your support. Tina has a MS in computer science from University of, so she's lived here in the U.S. and currently she's residing in Bangalore, building her business from there. Tina, good evening. It is evening your time, 12 and a half hours ahead of U.S. Pacific time. We look forward to learning more about you.
Yes, hi, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. All right. So hello, everybody. Glad to be here talking to people all across the world. And so I'm Tina, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Yfret, like Doug said. And we are trying to build a global business here. So my background is that I worked in the US earlier. And when I moved back to India, I was still working for the US company. And I was trying to sell the US products to Indian customers. And now I'm doing quite the opposite, where we're building a product out of India and we're trying to sell globally. So basically we have some learnings, and Caesar, if you can share the PowerPoint, I would love to go through just a few slides to sum up my learnings. So basically what I would like to talk about myself through my learnings, because I think a person is what he has learned so far. So what I have discovered is people are really the same everywhere. Whether it's the US or the India, the consumer behavior is the same. I used to think that there's a lot of difference, but after studying the market, I found that really that's not the case. For example, millennials in the US, people in India shopping online, everybody's looking for deals. And marketers in India, marketers in the US, they're all looking for ROI on marketing. They're looking for simplicity. They're looking for things that save time. So finally, people are the same everywhere. That's a great story, because that means you can build a product in one country and sell it outside. Caesar, next slide. So one of my learnings is you should never stay in your comfort zone. So if you recognize this is a clip out of Truman Show, and here Jim Carrey doesn't know he's living in a limited world until he actually dares to step out. So if you're building a global business, don't stay within the walls, dare to step out. This is one of my learnings. I think I should have probably tried to go global a lot earlier. But the moment I tried, I found that it's really not hard. Another learning is never be attached to a specific outcome. So it's a saying from Indian philosophy that just do your work and don't worry about the result. Detachment may sound like a odd thing when you're talking about success, but actually if you're detached, you just do your job and the universe is going to take care. So that's a great learning. And finally, what I like to tell the corporates is that you cannot, stay where you are and expect to succeed. So if you look at the retail industry in the US, in India, all the old companies that do not innovate are suffering. So one of our messages is, you have to run as fast as you can, just to stay where you are. So these are the things I would just like to tell all of you. And that's it from me.
Thank you very much, and certainly stay on board here, and there'll be some questions later for you. So thank you very much, Tina. Have you had a chance to talk to Vinod, our person in Mumbai, yet?
Yes, I had a word with him last week.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, that's great. He's a longtime friend and not a woman, but a pretty amazing guy nonetheless. So we're going to shift now. Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're now going to shift back to the U.S., to Salt Lake City. And I'm very proud to announce Lisa McPhee Cox. She has an extraordinary background working in international transportation for 38 years. You know, and that's actually probably longer than many of the people in our audience. And I think even Susan Shultz, it's longer than she has even been around on Earth. So amazing that she has that much experience. She's employed at Air and Sea International. She's calling in actually and from our office with our Global Chamber Executive Director, Meher, in Murray, Utah. Has anybody been to Murray, Utah in the audience? Jamie from the University of Utah, of course. You've been to Murray. So, and so they're calling in from Murray. Lisa has been serving on the Utah District Export Council. Congratulations, Lisa. I'm on the Arizona District Export Council, and you've done a lot of great work with the World Trade Association there. So undoubtedly you know Franz Kolb, who is also an institution of international activity in Utah. You are called on to lecture frequently at Utah colleges, number one being, of course, the University of Utah, as I'm sure you'll agree, the government-sponsored events, and you talk about international issues, including export compliance and transportation. So thank you very much for sharing more about who you are and what you've been doing, and it's been such a rich history. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's really an honor to be among all of you today. You know, I think one of the first things that I learned when I started in the transportation business was that I did not want to be what they referred to as an ugly American. Because we as Americans go overseas and expect everyone to do things our way. And I think we have done a great in service not only to our culture, but to the cultures we have gone to. And one of the things that was really hard for me being a woman is traveling overseas and not understanding or even studying the culture I was entering. I had an instance where I was in Malaysia working on the docks trying to get some freight moved from Malaysia over to Bangladesh. And I was telling a man how to do his job. That did not go over well. I finally, after about 30 minutes, figured out that I do not tell a Muslim man how to do his job. So after 35 minutes, I went and sat in the car for a minute trying to gain my composure and decided if I have my security man tell this man how to do the job, we will get out of there a lot sooner. And we did. And it was my fault. I totally did it wrong. And once I started using my head rather than we're American, we only know how to do it, and I don't need to listen, it was quite a learning experience for me. So I would like to say, surround yourself with those who know. Glean everything you possibly can from them. Don't be afraid to make mistakes because you learn from them. And like I say, this was a learning experience well over 30 years ago that I learned. Be very passionate about what you do. Be passionate that you want to help others learn. In the industry that I am in, people are not trained like they used to. Years and years and years and years ago, in Germany, that's where all of the freight forwarders were really trained. And they start as an apprentice at 14 years old. And you have to be a man. The times they are changing. Are they changing fast? Not fast enough for us women. We know what it's like. We know how hard it is to try to get into a man's world. Don't get me wrong, I love men, I love working with men. But sometimes the playing field isn't quite as level as we would like it to be. And I have experienced this time and time and time again all over the world. Another thing is, as a woman, don't be afraid to be a mother and a businesswoman. I am the mother of 8 children. I am the grandmother to almost 13 grandchildren. All of my children so far have all graduated from college and have done very well for themselves. Do not be afraid to be who you are, not only in your professional life, but in your personal life. One of the things that has been interesting is when I first started with the company that I am with now, we did not have a very large international base. And so it was my job to get us agents all over the world, which we do have. And we are members of different agency groups. So that a little freight forwarder in Salt Lake City, Utah, we have agents in every country and are able to ship anywhere within the United States allowances. And what I mean by the countries that we have embargoes on. Be passionate. Don't be afraid to teach and let others learn from you. Sometimes women tend to be a little bit holding their cards close to their vest because they get a little jealous. Check that card a long time ago and don't use it, because the more you share, the more you'll learn. Understand the differences with the cultures you deal with. If they do not like you bringing gifts, don't bring gifts. I almost ended up in jail in China because of a gift I brought. Know what you're doing. Be flexible. And, you know, the one thing that I would just like to tell anybody is have fun with it. Don't be so rigid that you're in a box. Ladies, it's time for us to get out of that box. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. What was the gift that almost got you in jail?
Believe it or not, it was a religious book.
Ah, okay. Okay. They don't like that.
Yeah, no, they don't do that. No, that was, yeah, I'm glad I'm not there.
So now we're going to shift back to Scottsdale, Arizona, and Susan Shultz. Can everybody see Susan Shultz? I can't see Susan Shultz.
It's fine. You see it?
Susan, could you step up to the camera?
Maybe you need to change
Oh.
places real quick, and then she can
Okay.
sit here like I
That
do.
would be fine. I don't think it's going to be necessary, but. So Cesar, hopefully you guys can see us. We're now talking from Scottsdale. We next will be talking with Susan. Oh, I think I know what the issue is, and I'll fix that here in a second for everybody. So Susan, I met Susan during her time. It's not in her bio, but one of the amazing things that she's done is spent at least 17 years, it might have been longer, with the Phoenix Committee on Foreign Relations. And she really was the Phoenix Committee on Foreign Relations for many of us that have been involved in that organization. But she's done some extraordinary things on the business side as well. She's founded her company, the Board Institute. She's founded SSA Executive Search in 1981. So she's an entrepreneur. She's been very successful doing executive search. And because of her activity with the boards, she's very well connected around the world, everywhere, with not just business people, but when she was leading the Phoenix Committee on Foreign Relations, we would have, people like Donald Rumsfeld and just like really extraordinary people, but, politics aside, just really people that you would know. And she knows everybody. I'm sure, if you ask her, hey, do you know this person? Undoubtedly, she does. She has 4 major books, including a #1 bestseller on the New York Times. So she's done a few things. She's also worked with Representative William Brock earlier in her career. Susan, you're really amazing. Tell us a little bit more about how you got to where you are and a little bit more about your background.
Thank you, Doug. You are such the diplomat. You are the perfect person to lead our global chamber, and I congratulate you on all you've done for this chamber. I think it's a fabulous resource for all of us, and if there were one piece of advice, I'd say let's leverage this wonderful organization to help one another, because that's really our commitment. So Doug was very specific about what we should talk about, and I obeyed him. So I was kind of prepared to do that.
First time ever.
So he asked for a little bit about our experience, and he told you a lot, but I've always been passionate about global. I think international is our opportunity and the magic in our life, and it helps us in so many ways. I started in executive search and moved really to focus in boards of directors because I saw that as a wasted opportunity and a huge strategic opportunity for companies of all sizes, and really two key issues. One is global boards and the other is diversity on boards, and primarily women. I have had the opportunity to speak around the world in Mumbai and Helsinki and Dubai and Colombia and China and Turkey and Amsterdam, and I feel very, very lucky. India. I was recently in India with women corporate directors. These women are remarkable. Don't tell me there are no qualified women. That is such a myth. It's just a matter of finding them. Doug asked us to talk about our business, what's working, what isn't, or where we can improve. And my business I'm focused on now is the Board Institute. It's a web-based software as a service company to professionally evaluate boards really for the first time. And we've developed a suite of tools. Our first foreign partner and a prototype for more international expansion, we very much hope, is we have the Norwegian board index. It's translated, it's been sold in Norway, and now we're looking to expand into other markets. And the opportunity is to benchmark, evaluate, and improve boards of directors. And I think if we don't have good boards, we will not ever have really true diversification. We're the biggest and we think the best market in the world, and we've had the luxury of choosing whether to go global, but this is not the case anymore. 70% of business is done outside of the United States, and so we simply don't have the option of ignoring the global markets, and I think that's a big opportunity for us. Good boards mean good companies. Good boards can impact companies in their global initiatives in so many different ways. If a company has an investment in a particular market, doesn't it make sense to have somebody in that market who knows the business, who knows the nuance of succeeding in those markets and bringing them onto the board? You simply can't buy that kind of expertise at that level in any other way. You can be so particular, and it's such a unique opportunity, and I wish more companies take advantage of it. In the U.S., only 7% of our directors are global, are non-U.S. citizens, and only 14% of our board members, and these are the largest companies, only 14% have people with significant international business. So this is a huge opportunity for all of us to think about boards, to think about global on boards. and to recruit and do whatever we can to promote international boards. As small and mid-sized companies especially can benefit from diversified boards. And when I talk about strategic diversified boards, I especially think about women. And you see, you mentioned some examples, and I was thinking as you were talking of two examples. One, I had an honor of speaking in Tokyo at an economist forum for CFOs and CEOs, and I was pretty intimidated by this. I was on the platform. I was talking about boards in the United States and practices, and in Japan, it's quite different, as you probably know. And there I was as a woman and speaking about independent boards, and they had two chairs up on the high dais, and I went with my nice skirt and sat down, and the other gentleman was head of the stock exchange, and he was seated. Before they began, they stopped everything, and a little man came up, and he bowed to me, and in his arms he had a blanket, and I was supposed to cover my legs because I had a skirt on, and that was not proper. And then I remember another instance when we were doing an executive search in Saudi for Nissan, and I only used my initials, and I never met them because they had no idea I was a woman. And it worked out really well. We found a wonderful person, but if I don't think I would have had the assignment or the level of confidence if they'd known, unfortunately, that I was a woman. I would like to, if I could just take another minute to talk about where we are as women around boards, because I think boards, if we don't have representation at the top, if we don't have diversity at the top, and that is inclusive when I talk about diversity, but I don't think we're going to make the strides that we need to make. So right now, as you probably all know, 40% Norway has really led with a mandate requiring 40% of women on boards, and that is happening. Even Turkey requires a single woman. India requires at least one woman on a board. In the U.S., I don't expect that we'll ever, or certainly not in the near term, have any mandate. However, we do require disclosure by companies. Right now, we have about 15% on the biggest companies. By this rate, we will have parity in 2055. And I just don't think this is acceptable. And I think there's a lot that we can do about it. And I know we're going to talk about that later. But there are, there's so many signs of inequality still in our market. And we did a search for a New York Stock Exchange company not too long ago. We always include women in our shortlist, as it's called. And the best candidate in this case was a woman. She was fabulous. And it was a great big construction home builder. And the CEO looked at me and said, "I'm sorry, our culture just isn't ready for a woman." And I think that this is not so unusual, and I think that he really articulated this unconscious bias that we're hearing a lot about. 4% of CEOs are women. Our numbers are men are 30% more likely to be promoted. And lots of us have been successful, and I think it's because we're persistent, and those of us have had others. And so sometimes we're not quite as popular as some of the others, and I bet we've all had those experiences. But I think we have a huge opportunity now. I think there's a lot of convergence, a lot of activism, a lot of awareness about the opportunities for women and the importance of using this 50% of our genius. I just last night finished a book called The Rocket Women. And these were the women who were the mathematicians. And they ran the space program in the early days, did all math before IBM. I think this is a time of opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Stay where you are. Some amazing information. It's actually quite, when you said the trend is 30% on boards, did you say 2055?
Yes.
That's a long way away.
It's not acceptable.
Yeah.
We've been accepting of this, and we thought that we would be recognized, and women haven't raised their hands.
Okay.
And we need to do that.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
are you ladies ready to raise your hands?
Yeah.
Another lady who raises her hand quite frequently is Lucie. We're going to shift over to the Silicon Valley right now. Lucie Newcomb. She has a company. She's the CEO and CMO of the Newcomb Global Group. She is a multifaceted Renaissance woman, as many of our audience are. But Lucie is really quite special, both on the business side and also one of the things that she's very involved with is the International Visitor Leadership Program, which those of you here in Phoenix know that I've also spoken about. There's an organization called Global Ties Arizona. It used to be called World Affairs Council, and then we changed the name to National Council on International Visitors Arizona or something like that, based on the Washington group changing its name. But then they changed their name to Global Ties. A lot easier to say. And so that's the organization here. And the State Department handles about 5,000 to 7,000 international visitors. And these are not just like normal people. They're selected by our embassies around the world that are future leaders in other countries. And the basic idea is they come to the U.S. for 3 weeks at a time. And they visit and have dinner with Americans. And that experience ends up being very positive for everybody. For the Americans to experience these international visitors who are typically pretty amazing themselves, and the visitors go back and they tend to be very positive about America. So when they hear through their fake news, the fake news is everywhere, right? So they hear, oh, those Americans, they're terrible and this and that. And it's like, well, I broke bread with a few Americans for 3 weeks, and it was actually a pretty good experience. So it's an amazing program by the State Department, which was threatened to be cut by 32%. But I understand the latest bill is only about 3%. So the good news is, it's probably not going to be cut. And Lucie has been involved in probably just not that program, but other exchange programs which the State Department runs, which are all very valuable. She's also been Silicon Valley Woman of Influence honoree. She is a very strong proponent of citizen diplomacy, which is really what the International Visitor Leadership Program stands for. And she's worked with companies like Cisco, IBM, Johnson & Johnson, and probably even some companies you've heard of. So Lucie, are you there? Oh, that's discouraging. Are we muted in Silicon Valley? We were having some technical problems in Palo Alto earlier, and
It's ironic.
it is quite ironic. Technical problems in Silicon Valley. So I'm getting texts. Oh, skip. Okay, so we're actually going to be skipping over Silicon Valley. But Lucie, if you can hear us, and just let us know when you're back among us, and hopefully over the next little bit work with Cesar, and we'll figure out a way of kind of weeding you back in. So if I could ask Dr. Martin, could you sit where I am sitting? And I've got a small one up for you.
Thank you, Doug. Hi, Susan.
Hi.
Great job.
If you guys want to both be in the camera so that you can both speak.
And where's she?
We'll step back. So
Oh,
that's
I see
great.
it.
So I do have a few questions, and let's just
there we
go
are.
around let's go around the world in terms, and Cesar, if you can't hear me, please let me know because I'm standing a little bit back. But I wanted to ask the panel that we've got, and Lucie again chime in if we've got the technical problems figured out at Cooley. But I'd like to ask each one of the women in terms of, we've heard some startling, we've heard some challenges, we've heard a little bit of opportunity as well and some advice. Are there certain things that you all as women feel like you bring to the table that really allows you, I heard the word persistence, for instance, earlier. Are there certain things that you as a woman bring to the table that uniquely qualify you to be successful in business and also maybe to overcome some of these challenges? Does anybody want to take that question?
Well, I see it in the boardroom, and that's, as you can tell, my focus, although to import-export for quite a few years, and so got that sense. And the women, I think women tend to expect to be recognized and tend not to speak up. And I would urge women to have ambitious goals and not be intimidated. I would urge all of you to think about sitting on boards, certainly to influence boards, and I think we have a commitment to help one another as women, and sometimes we don't do that. I think the biggest difference we can make is enabling one another in a positive way, and it comes back to us so many times. And then reach out, have a plan. There are so many organizations like the Chamber to help us to globalize. So be visible, be an expert, write an article, speak as we are. We have this wonderful opportunity. Anything to make ourselves an expert, to stand out.
So you touch on something that, at least as a man, I notice, and I notice it because I'm married for 35 years to a woman and have a daughter who, and she reminds me very often about women empowerment. And as a father of a young child, I remember I've learned a lot, and it should change my life certainly. But one of the things I notice when women act like men or they're tough like men, they get heat for it, right? It's like, you're the B word or you're doing whatever. I mean, how do you win in this scenario? If you're a woman, then you're weak. If you're a man, you're a B word. So like, how do you manage through that in business? I honestly have no idea how you can.
I have a few ideas for you, Doug. One of the things that I found to be very successful strategy for me, and it comes from the heart, is to find women of like minds and collaborate with them. We have an outstanding relationship with the Arizona State University Center for the Study of Race and Democracy. They're familiar with the work that I do, the transformational work, life-changing work, and they have assisted me with marketing through their 10,000 members about my work. So collaborate, find like-minded people, men included, to support your cause. Another thing that I found very, very useful is learn how to negotiate. There are courses like this. We are losing too much money by not knowing how to negotiate, knowing what the market price is, and then doing what it takes to get the courage up to ask for what you deserve. Mm-hmm. I know the last one, then I'm going to turn it over because I know my sisters over there from another mother and father have got things to say too. The other thing is I've become certified as a woman business owner from the Women Business Enterprise, the WeBank, and that puts me in touch with corporations. So I find that incredibly useful to be able to go online to the portal, find a corporation that I want to connect with, and get immediately kind of past the gatekeepers. So as a businesswoman, that's very important to me, plus my relationship with the Global Chamber. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you very much, Dr. Martin.
Mhm.
Tina or Lisa, do you have some things to add to that? And Tina, particularly, you're in tech,
Yeah.
and tech is not necessarily known for a very woman-friendly location, and yet you're a CEO of a tech company. So if you could maybe comment on that a little bit. And then Lisa, you've seen 38 years of experience. You've seen a whole spectrum of things, both here in the U.S. And in Utah, which is also part of the United States, as I understand it, and in another country. And you never did mention about University of Utah, so I'm still waiting for that Go Utes from you. So Lisa and Tina, how about from you?
Sure. So my experience is that women are good leaders. Women can keep a team together because women are, I think, people. I mean, a woman is a people person. So and I think finally a company is all about people and culture. So I think women are great at building culture, and women are also great multitaskers. So these are the two things that sort of go very positively and reinforce a woman to become a good leader. So I think instead of trying to be like a man, a woman should play on her strengths and form her own leadership style, and she can definitely make it. Like I heard something about negotiation. So I would consider negotiation to be one of the weak points because women tend to be more empathetic, and when you empathize too much, you see the other person's point of view more. So I believe that negotiation is probably one of the points that women have to develop, at least personally for myself. That's it from me.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Tina.
I think that one thing that's very, very important is we need to have flexibility. And what I mean by flexibility is we all know there's different ways of doing things. And sometimes our way may not be right. And when we try to express those views, we need to kind of keep our emotions checked so that we don't come across as ornery and mean and witchy. And so if we can keep that flexibility, and also like I emphasized before, glean as much knowledge from those around you. Don't be afraid to have your point known or to share your ideas. Because I think that when we share, we learn even more from that. And those were just some little things that I had. The last thing would be is don't be afraid to think outside of the box. You know, don't be afraid to do that. That's all I have.
Thank you. That's great knowledge, and actually ties back into what Tina said as well. Lucie, are you actually there? I can see you. Are you able to speak? No? Oh, okay. Does anybody get it? So whenever you might be able to speak, let us know, or just dial in to maybe to Cesar, and we'll figure out a way to hear your voice. I'd love to hear that. I'm gonna still ask another.
Can I just add one thought to that? That we don't need to be confrontive to be effective, and I think that used to be one of the myths, is that we had to be just like the men in that. And that's the point that you brought up. And one thing I have seen in my work with boards is women tend to over-prepare and under-ask. And so women tend to do 150% of the homework. The other thing, and it's not necessary, the men immediately volunteer, I know, and say, I can do that. And we tend to be very strategic, and we tend to be very thorough. And maybe we need to learn to move forward a little more quickly.
Okay, great. I did read something this last week that said something about women as executives tend to be taken advantage of by men around resources, that they get kind of bullied to give resources to the greater good. And has anybody ever experienced that in terms of you as a among equals to be somewhat kind of bullied to basically, hey, you should share your resources more with the company, and kind of like a guilt trip kind of bullying thing. Anybody experience some of that? I've experienced that as a man and tried to be bullied.
Maybe that.
I don't know how different that
No, I
is
haven't had that.
with women and whether that's a significant issue. You guys are tough cookies, so.
Yeah, I don't know, Doug, if I may have when I started out in the agency business, but now I expect the best of the best. And I ask for it. It doesn't mean that I get it, but I have very high expectations of my interpreters, of my teams. I coach them, I mentor them, I spend time with them. Maybe it's the resource called time, because I care that we have a quality product, so I spend time and I invest it in the people that I work with. How about you, Susan?
Very, very good. One more question, and then I'm going to take a question from the audience.
Doug, I'm in now too.
Oh,
good.
Is that Lucie?
Sorry, not to interrupt.
Oh, wonderful. Would you like to go next, please?
No, please continue with your program, and maybe I can scoot in after that.
She should raise her hand.
Oh, well, no, go. Why don't you go ahead? I
wanna
don't know if you heard my introduction, but I've already
That's
introduced you, so we're ready to hear from you.
Well, thank you. As you all noted, the height of irony that the capital in the world of tech should have such problems, but thank you for your patience, and hello, everyone. Good day wherever you are. My name is Lucie Newcomb, and I'm, as Doug mentioned, CEO and CMO of the Newcomb Global Group. We're an international management consultancy specializing in global business. And I've been doing global business for about 24 years. I started my company as an international sales and business development marketing company, taking people global. And after doing that for quite a while, almost 20 years, I realized we were using another skill set to keep people global, to have clients feel comfortable really embedding their brands and revenue streams. So those things would be things like cross-cultural leadership development and change communications, even some recruiting and staffing. So I went back and got a leadership master's degree at a challenging later point in life, and loved it, and really love what I do. And so pivoted the company then to a horizontal company, and so our motto is global business from the inside out. Just so you know, I can't see you right now, but I'm assuming that's okay. And I don't know, Doug, do you want me to go through the same program as you had assigned, because I'm aware of our time constraints?
Can you hear me?
Now I can.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah. So we can hear you beautifully. We can see you. Everything is working out really well. I couldn't figure it out, but one of the women in the audience, Svetlana, actually came up and she's fixed it here so we can see you.
Fabulous.
If you want to talk
about your experience. I'll just finish my my little story about saying that I tend to be a pioneer and innovator, and hence my landing back in the Valley. I was actually born in the Bay Area, lived in Europe and Africa for a while, and then things came full circle with the invention of the internet. Someone had asked me 10 years prior, what are you going to be doing in 10 years? And I said, I don't know where I got this answer, but I said, I don't know, because it hasn't been quite invented yet. So when the internet came, so did I. And I also specialize in emerging markets, which I think is one of the reasons. There's always a wonderful set of opportunity and experimentation in emerging markets. And I'll let you take it from here, Doug. Again, I'm aware of the time constraints and appreciate some time with you today.
Oh, we're very happy that you can join us and get through the challenges. Alicia, you have a question. You want to lean forward and explain your question, please?
So ladies, thank you, all of you, for being here today and sharing your stories. Oh, more? Oh, okay, louder. Ladies, thank you so much to all of you for being here and sharing your stories today. As we all know, and as I'm sure you've experienced in your lives, leadership is a journey. What I would love to hear is what mentorship roles have other women played in your life to help you make that journey or take those next steps?
I share a group called Women Corporate Directors. It's women who sit on corporate boards, and the commitment in that group is to bring other women onto the board and to educate and support each other. I'm old enough but I didn't have any women. No, so and you know, the men still are the decision makers. So we need to collaborate also with the men. And so the people who helped me were men typically. And most of my business was referred by men. And every once in a while, there was a wonderful woman at Wells Fargo who reached out and gave me an opportunity to do some really sophisticated searches that I normally would not have had that opportunity. She really took a risk, because it's a risk to support us as women. It's not as comfortable. Men, and we all like to do business with people we feel safe with and comfortable with. And women are different and approach things differently. So that was a big risk, and I appreciate it. And I think the world is now changing. I think that we now are, now women understand the role of mentoring and sponsoring, and there's that distinction of actually promoting people as well as coaching. So I think mentoring is coaching. I don't want to take up all our time, and sponsoring is as promoting. So I think the world is changing. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah. And I would like to jump in there and say, as a mentor for about 17 years now, I have become so clear that it's part of my lifelong learning, that it's a wonderful teaching and support role, but I learn from every single, I don't like the term mentee particularly, but every single mentoring partner that I work with, I'm sure I learn just as much, perhaps more. It's a really amazing opportunity. And there, you know, as Susan was saying, there are many different roles for executing this kind of support, whether it's sponsorship or coaching or mentoring. I also was in the generation where I didn't get a chance to have a mentor, but now I can really see so many leadership opportunities being presented, and I highly encourage you to take advantage of them.
Yeah.
Do you ladies all have a mentor now? Or do you mentor? How does that work?
I have people that I hire coaches. I am a coach to executive women in leadership. I have a different conversation about the term mentor. For me, a mentor, in the true sense of the word, for me, as I deal with language and context, there's somebody who gives me the feedback that no one else would. Somebody that tells me when I could be doing something better than how I'm doing it. Somebody who's authentic and truthful and honest with me, I consider that mentoring. And the same true with collaboration. So I don't know, does that answer your question, Alicia? Did we get it?
I'm wondering about my definition of mentor. Is I like what you had to say, and I would just add to that, someone who shows you the example of what it means to do that well.
Yes.
And then gives you feedback on where your opportunity is to reach that level of performance.
Mm-hmm.
So does that sound like it's a
Yeah.
lot of what you said?
Same ballpark.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Lisa or Tina, anything to add there? And if not, we'll just...
You know, with my industry, like I say, it's mostly been men, and I have gleaned and learned as much. But I'm going to say one who was really a mentor to me was actually my mother, because she taught me it's okay, women can work and women can be successful. And she was a nurse for many, many, many years and continued to learn. She would go on her days off to grand rounds at the hospital and learn about different things that they were talking about. And even today, at the age of 88, she still continues to learn. And that, to me, is a mentor. She taught us how to work hard as young kids. And those have all carried on with me into my business life. And, you know, anyone can be a mentor to you. First of all, we have to be willing to be taught.
That's a good comment.
Yeah. There's one thing, if I may. I think that, I don't know that any of us have mentioned the power of education. I'm a lifelong learner, and going back to school is a joy of mine, and it's a challenge, but I totally encourage those women and men who choose to go global, to do the work on whatever country, whatever great nation you're going to be doing business in and talking to. Do your homework. And yeah, we do over prepare, but that's my security blanket, Susan. Me too. But it's valuable, and I'm getting ready to, I've invested in marketing and branding, so it never stops. You know, we wouldn't expect it to stop for our clients, so it can't stop for us.
I remember Mortimer Adler always said, continuous learning. We're all teachers all through our lives, and we're also learners all through our lives. I think that's one of the aspects of globalism, is that all of us share that curiosity and passion for learning about other cultures and appreciating other cultures, which I think women have a tendency perhaps to be very, very good at, understanding and listening to other cultures.
Agreed. I wonder are there cultures or countries where it's easier obviously easier for you to work, and are there certain cultures and countries that have been more difficult and particularly challenging?
That's a good question.
For me, it really has to do with the team that I'm working with. Like working overseas with Accenture and working with the chief learning officer. We have to get invested, I say, just my thoughts. We have to get invested in laying the groundwork and supporting people to be their best. And if you can be on a team where they support you in being your best, I tend to say there is no one place that I've had a very difficult time. My stereotypes in going into what was the Soviet Union back in the day, my stereotypes about that did not serve me, and I needed to learn really, really quickly, because it could have been a dangerous situation that I was in. Walking into a bank and there's an armed guard there, sort of like you, my friend, with your gift in China. So we need to learn and watch and be mindful. And I don't know if this is true for all of us as women global leaders. Fine-tune your sense of intuition. Like if you sense something is wrong, check it out. Because I think, I don't know, I've never heard of something called father wit, but I think we all have a bit of mother wit. So anyway.
I did some early work in Poland, and I was on an SBA board and did some training there. Early days in new business, and it was when they were privatizing, and I ended up going on my own, and I was on a train, and somebody slipped my purse and took my wallet and my passport, and I ended up in Gdansk, not speaking Polish, no resources, and so that for me was a big challenge, but it was quite an adventure. And I remembered there was an American Express ad, and it showed a guy in the desert getting his card, and the next day I had somebody finally call American Express. He said, "Oh no, it will be a few days." I said, "What about this ad?"
Marketers always lie.
And I ended up with a card the next morning. That was hard. And the blood soup was a little hard for me to get used to.
You got a lot of people on the line that understand what you're talking about.
If there's any other questions from the audience, please just interrupt. I was interested to hear from all of you too, just if you take a step back and give us kind of like your tips, to the women in the audience and the women who are on the recording, given all of your experience and what you've been through, I mean, what are kind of like the couple things that you want to leave people with in terms of, how they can be more successful and how to move the needle? 4% CEOs is like way, ridiculous. It's absurd, and none of us are going to be able to make that change on our own. So how do we collectively make a change? So what tips do you have to keep moving the world forward?
I'm waiting.
And there's a follow-up question on that here.
Are there a lot of women out there who want to be CEOs but feel they're blocked from it?
I don't know.
I
couldn't
think
answer
there
that.
are. I do think there are, and I ask this all the time at the board level. And I see there are so many subtle kinds of barriers that we're not aware of. There is DuPont CEO is a woman, did a study, and she found that men were promoted every 2 years and women every 3 years. There are, I hate to keep being so negative, but there is a lot that for us to be aware of, to think about. So I do think women want to be there, but I think it's we need to be more not aggressive, but assertive and expect that it's our due. We're every bit as capable and accomplished, and actually have a lot, I think, of compatibility with where the world is going in terms of curiosity, in terms of inclusiveness, in terms of a new kind of leadership. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to monopolize, but I believe the women are there, and I think it's a myth that we don't want to be there.
Doug, is our person from Silicon Valley, is she still online with us?
Lucie,
Yes, I am. Huh? I'm here.
Lucie, I'd be really interested to hear what you have to say. We've honored women in my programs in STEAM, science, technology, engineering, the arts, and math. You're there, and I'm interested to hear what you have to say on tips, for women that want to make it in technology or any other area.
Sorry, I keep staring down because I have to use the audio in my phone, so forgive me. I am listening to you for sure, Joel.
Okay.
Doug kindly mentioned my brief involvement with IDLP. I've actually gone on to work, and I appreciate that. Thanks, Doug. Very immersively in a program from the State Department called Tech Women, where we bring, and I am answering your question, we bring what will this year be the largest group, 99 women from around the world in the emerging markets, to mentor here for 5 weeks. And that has been a key aspect of bringing those women into work with what are often women, but not always, tech women mentors in high-tech companies. So we have a number of things happening in the Valley in that way. Technology is tough, and the startup ecosystem for women is tough. You may have read some of the media lately. We are going through a purging and healing process at the moment that is both intense and necessary. In terms of tips, it's interesting, the challenges we faced across the board. I have been making some choices in my career development about whether to pursue more work on women on boards, where I've done a lot of nonprofit work for a long time, and then the women investment track, the women investor track. And both, I think, are leverages for and creating greater levels of inclusion. For women in STEM, it's interesting because that's a broad number that includes people like me at the outskirts who are not by any means technical, but who do work in technology. And then that includes women like many of my colleagues who are engineers and so forth. And they have some challenges, and again, you may have read, some more public challenges. And then they also have, the classic challenges that all of us women in business have about proving ourselves and, standing toe-to-toe with male colleagues and often having to do twice as well. And so that technical arena is not that different. In many ways, women have had an easier time than, say, female founders like me who are working through the investment ecosystem and things of that nature. So that's a really broad brush answer to your question, that our challenges aren't that different. Women in STEM, though, is so critically important. As one who is committed to economic empowerment, especially for women, because that uplifts families and society. That's part of why I've been so committed to that mentoring path, because I just see the potential for such great catalytic work.
Thank you.
So specifically, it's exactly what Susan just said. be assertive, be confident in your competence, and also be flexible and agile.
And the money is, you raise the point of money, and I've gotten involved in our angels group and have tried to get more women. Of course, there aren't very many of us in that group. But if any of you are interested in an angels group, that you can really have impact if you're investing in growth, culture, interest.
That's a great comment, because people often think they have to be a venture capitalist. And Susan, maybe you want to explain just a little about what an angel is, because maybe not everyone knows.
Thank you. Yeah, an angel is a group of individuals who really come together and help and invest in small growth companies of all types. And what's been fun to see lately is there have been quite a few women. And one of the things that I've been able to do, because I'm on the selection committee, is encourage the women-owned businesses, which is pretty new for us. And I see that probably in Silicon Valley too.
Yes, I think that's one of the levers. I've had the privilege of being part of many female founders groups, and myself, I'm moving more in that direction, because as we flip the cognitive diversity, I mean, for me, that is actually what it's about, whether race or gender. It's, more minds at the table with more points of view bring more. The data shows it. So as we have more women investors, it's natural, and some are actually, overtly focused on women's groups. And also, as you talked about, some people talked about comfort levels earlier. I think we're just widening the circle bit by bit in the places we can, and this is a key leverage point for that.
Yeah. What about India? Do you have angels groups there?
Yes, we do have angel groups here. We do not have too many women-focused angel groups, and I think one of the challenges for women is actually raising funds. Probably there is some kind of inherent bias. It's also harder for women because women do not network naturally as much as men do. So I think the need for a women's angel group or an angel group supporting women is pretty good. It's pretty real.
There's okay, we'll have a couple of questions that are actually coming in online, and we'll get to the Bob has a question, and Asia has a question, so we'll get to those. This is a question from Jan. I'm not sure where Jan is. Her question is, do any of you have any comments or input regarding how sometimes even younger women, not just men, look at middle-aged or older women as people who don't have, shall we say, as much to offer to business environments? Is this ageism?
Yes.
We're all laughing.
Yes.
So this is a relevant question.
Yeah.
You're all laughing.
Yeah.
Let me just quote my great-grandmother on that. I've forgotten more than they'll ever know.
Okay. And yet, I mentioned my daughter, who's an amazing young woman, 32 years of the millennial generation. There's a lot of abuse toward them, but yet they're very global, and they want to do a lot of great things, and they have a lot of great ideas, and never want to try to dismiss them. So how do you kind of survive in this world where, your experience, most of you have a tremendous experience, Lisa, 38 years. So how do you kind of live in this world where people are coming up with fresh ideas, and yet you've got all of this experience and know a lot of stuff?
Well, it's just like we talked earlier. You have to glean and learn all you can. And yes, these younger kids can teach us old ladies some new tricks. The problem that we have is sometimes we get the, oh, you're too young, you don't know, you don't have the experience. And my generation, needs to kind of get past that, listen to what these kids have to say and have to offer. Because I promise we can learn as much from them as they can from us.
I think that one of the things is we, of a different generation, may do them a disservice by not acknowledging them to be the powerful sources of change that they have come to be. They were raised by grandparents who were boomers, more than likely, and were committed to making the world a better place. I trust the millennial women to really shepherd the future generations and steer this ship into shore such that there are more women leaders, there are more women CEOs, there is more money. So when a millennial or younger comes in and says, I want your job, say, great, let me mentor you so that you're prepared to take it on. So I don't have a problem with my gig on.
Yeah, we don't want to be threatened by them. That's not the right attitude.
Okay.
No, right.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jen, wherever you are. Next question from Asia. Asia, would you like to speak up? It's actually not from Asia. It's from Scottsdale, and Asia is sitting in Scottsdale.
Yeah, thank you. It piggybacks on what we were just talking about with the women CEOs. My question was, do you see, and it might be just a mixture, and I don't think a 50-50 mixture, but with those, to see an increase in the percentage of female CEOs, do you see that coming more from females starting their own companies or being more assertive within the companies that they're in and rising in those companies up to the position of CEO?
Anybody there want to answer it? I see them as starting.
Starting?
Yeah, starting. You know, there have been some tragic tales of women being appointed as CEO because the company was failing. So
I go for 4%, but we're all going to go start our own company.
well, I'm seeing
Let's go.
it. I'm seeing it.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you go.
Go.
I'm done.
Okay.
Go, Susan.
You guys are so
See, we're
polite.
so polite, the guys. Yeah, I just talk. I would.
Guys
anyway.
just talk over each other.
Yeah. So I see so many pressures around corporations to accelerate women, and I am aware of all these subtle discriminations within companies, and it's not intentional. It just has existed because it's been the culture. So there is so much pressure. First of all, there are all the shareholder activists. They rate companies according to how diversified they are, and those ratings impact the stock price. So that gets everybody's attention. Then there are all these women's groups who are agitating for equality. Then there are the women themselves who are really ambitious. And I always ask them how they're doing. I did talk to a Google woman the other day out of San Francisco, and she said, I said, what goes on with you? You know, do you feel? And she said, well, the guys go to the strip clubs and that's how they bond. So that's still these little things.
The boys
Some don't.
That's right. That's right. It's great having men here. But still there are, so we just need to be, but I see big opportunity in corporate. Because there are a lot of women being advanced. There are a lot more women getting on boards, and once you're on the corporate board, then you're a lot of women now heads of significant companies.
How is it working in tech? What's your perspective?
I think tech is behind. I think tech, yeah, and certainly at the board level, way behind, like in Silicon Valley, and the directors are women.
Exactly.
So it's, and you look at the culture, and I shouldn't, you know, you're the expert, but it does seem the culture is pretty kind of gamish and more boy-centered.
Well, we are going through a big purge, and I think on the other side of what is unfortunately a very rough time in that particular area, you know, there'll be a lot of more purging and then healing and then some regrouping. I think on the other side of this, we're going to have a phenomenal ecosystem that's inclusive, buoyant, and certainly commercially fueled. We're not talking charitable development, but I think we're going through a pretty rough evolution of what has been known as the bro culture. So you're exactly right, Susan.
And globally, this is happening. You know, I mean, I'm surprised that Turkey and India both have mandates for women on boards, for example. So it's global.
I'm actually not a fan of that.
I think we should be there on merit, but
Yeah, exactly. But access is access, maybe for a short period of time. That's another chat we can have. Maybe.
yeah, another conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Isn't the American way we wouldn't have a mandate, right?
Right,
necessarily.
Right.
That's kind of
yeah.
so. Do you have a question?
Yes.
What's your question?
Patiently waiting. I'd like to pose this question to all the panelists. How do you deal with countries that treat women as second-class citizens? You're doing business with them.
Yes. So this is a tough one, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. I get to invent products where I just talk with these women. So my women's training in Asia and in Malaysia is for women only. And so that is one strategy that I
The
use.
easy way.
Yeah, the easy way, but it's the educational way. It's a way that I can empower them and lift them up. And that's something that we as women get to do. Other than that, I must be very respectful of the laws if I want to continue to do business in those countries. So, you know, you do what you do and you find a way to empower and make your difference.
Also quite a bit. I work in Malaysia also quite a bit, and I have to really echo that. With 3 different cultures, it's such a wonderful, and actually 12 in South Africa, it's so important to find that, try and find that fine line between respect and suggesting change versus trying, or opportunity, which is also a change of another kind, versus trying to impose it.
So are you trying to lead by example in that case, or like what Dr. Martin mentioned about working with the women to give them examples of how they can succeed and therefore change the system over time? I mean, these are like generational changes, not things that happen in a day, but they still make a change.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think there's a long conversation about behavioral change versus values change and all those scenarios, and I love working in both realms. I had the privilege of going for the State Department to do a lot of entrepreneurship training, and one of the aspects I taught very briefly about was pitching, which is the aspect where one approaches investors as heads of a startup for funding. And Malaysian audiences are generally, of course, this is a gross generalization, women particularly are very quiet and very respectful. And, I was doing Shark Tank type mode. If you're familiar with that, it's fairly boisterous. And so I thought, I'll never get them up. It's going to be so tough, but I just have to be respectful and kind of have a backup plan. Well, I had to kick them out 45 minutes after the time frame. They just were so into it. So that was a good lesson to me, to be more open, to teach by suggestion, to open doors by suggestion, and create those opportunities for walking through and create some bridges to make that easier, but also to just kind of let people be where they're at. And this was a really wonderful experience for, hopefully, for all of us.
So I found that they treat us as a different species. That if you're having expertise, you're recognized in that realm and not so much as a woman. And you see that with people like Condoleezza Rice or the women diplomats. It's the same thing. And I know women care. When I was in Japan once, I was speaking and suggested that we have a session for women who wanted to be on boards. And the guy said, nobody will come, but we'll just give it a try. Well, they had to move the room. There were so many women who wanted to do that in this Japanese, very homogenous culture. And then I had an experience in Mexico City once where I was in a room full. I was on a trade commission, and I was in a room full of mostly men, and I was invisible. And it was the most uncomfortable feeling because I hadn't been introduced or anything, not that I would expect to be, but I wasn't there. I was invisible as a woman until I was a speaker. So then, they paid attention. But it was a really powerful feeling because when you're in a room and the men gravitate to the other men and they don't see you. And in Mexico, I just never got over that feeling.
So we have just, we're going to wrap up. So if any of the speakers has the last 30 seconds they want to share, please do. I do want to, however, just kind of bridge off of something that you said about women and, you know, what the progress still needs to be made. And my own perspective is a lot of progress has been made. I'm one of those old guys that, you know, is subjective to ageism on the male side. You know, earlier in my career, when I started doing business, it was Korea, 1987, January of 87. And I was approached by a young Korean woman within the DuPont company to see if she could be transferred from the U.S. to DuPont Korea. And so one of the things I learned from my next several years of doing business in Korea is wasn't a very friendly place for women to do business. You know, that happened after work and things like that. And so I worked very hard to get her involved with DuPont Korea, and it didn't work. You know, and I worked for 2 or 3 years to try to get her to DuPont Korea, but they basically said women don't have a role in business. So that was in the 80s. That wasn't that long ago. Then, and this has really been kind of one of my things with Global Chamber and kind of as keeps inspiring me, is in the, later I lived in Japan, and our office for DuPont Showa-Denko, which is the joint venture I ran, they had the smallest person really in the company was a young office lady, they're called OLs, in Osaka. And I said, you know, she's brilliant. She should be in sales instead of just kind of doing paperwork. It's all, no. People from Toyota will never buy from a woman. Okay, so it took me 6 months of nemawashi, drinking with these knuckleheads, honestly, you know, to get them to like finally agree that this young woman could be in sales and doing just phone sales. She was the most successful person, you know, and so what drives me anyway for Global Chamber is the pushing of our practices, you know, around the world, not just American practices, but good business practices around the world that other cultures see and other businesses see, and hopefully say, hey, you know, that woman can do the job because I saw it somewhere else. It kind of builds back to the International Visitor Leadership Program that Lucie is so much a part of. Is something different that you've never seen before. You know, it changes your thought and your thought process. And another part, just last comment, you know, we're actually right here where Global Chamber is located. And most recently, we had a couple fellows from Russia. And this is a little bit off the woman topic, but we started in one of our drives around town talking about homosexuals and how that was such an uncomfortable thing that in Gorney Park, you had seen 2 men kissing. You know, I'm not here advocating, you know, all sorts of things other than, you know, being exposed to things when she saw totally offensive, and there should be a rule and a law against that. So I asked her, well, you know, should there be a law against men and women? And so we kind of went a little bit around for a few minutes. And at the end of the conversation, as she was getting out of the car, she said, I feel really bad for what I said. You know, but she never had that experience in Russia. And so one of the opportunities that we have, and one of the things that we've heard here today, is that these women panelists and all of you are in touch with Americans, in touch with people from around the world, and you have an opportunity, as you are demonstrating already, of impacting people by demonstrating your own skills, your own capabilities, and it's changing the world. Not fast enough, but it is changing the world. So I'd like to thank you ladies for a round of applause maybe for around the world, for extraordinary women, for giving us some really great knowledge. I'm sure we'll have a little bit of an after hours here in Scottsdale in terms of speaking with our speakers. But Lucie, thank you so much. And Lisa, thank you. And Tina, thank you so much for your insights. And we look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night, Lucie.
Good night.
Good night, Moon.
Douglas, thank you for doing
Almost.
Thank you all. Thank you, guys. Thank you.